from the pub to the disco was only about a 10-minute drive. As we got to the traffic lights, he tried to beat the traffic lights, put his toe down the accelerator and went to about 70. We had a collision with another car, went straight across the road. We hit a tree. And I remember seeing the tree about 3 inches before we got to it. And that's all I remember, and as far as I was told, I went for the window screen and broke my neck over the back of the car seat.
Well, had a game of rugby at school, and it was a sort of an annual game, which was always played in good fun with plenty of beer. And the scrum collapsed. I was playing prop, and the scrum collapsed on top of me. And I just fell and twisted my neck to the left, and it broke. And I was a bit dizzy, but didn't lose consciousness. And I asked someone to scratch the back of my knee, which they did, and I couldn't feel it. And I knew then that I'd broken my neck and that I was paralysed, and I could just shrug my shoulders. But I didn't know what it all entailed.
Stoke Mandeville Hospital near Aylesbury, an internationally acclaimed centre for the treatment of spinal injuries. And if you've ever wondered what it's like dressing yourself when you've broken either your back or neck, then take a look at Chris. His sort of injury can sever the spinal cord, the nerves which feed the brain with messages and in turn tell our arms and legs how to react. If these nerves are damaged, they become redundant, and they leave people like Chris and Doug and countless others helpless. All sense of feeling is lost. Simple things like going to the toilet become a long and difficult job, and it becomes a manual rather than a natural function. Sexual intercourse is often no longer possible. Surgery can't repair the damage. Paralysis is for life.
It was a swimming pool accident, diving, shallow water.
Did you realise the extent of your injury?
More or less, yeah. Because I sort of managed to get to the service sort of thing, call for help. But, you know, I was paralysed all over sort of thing, couldn't move at all. They managed to get me out of the pool and called for the ambulance sort of thing. I could tell in the way they were sort of strapping everything together that I'd broke my neck.
Why did it happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? That's all I think about.
How difficult is it coming to terms with the knowledge of what has happened to you?
Pretty difficult. You know, you've got 2 young kids sort of thing, you know.
You were in business by yourself?
Yeah, I was a self-employed bricklayer. You know, you can't do nothing to help the kids out sort of thing, you know. They don't realise sort of what I can do, but it's sort of difficult when they come to sort of, you know, do this for me, Dad, you know. You just can't do it.
What exactly is the extent of your injuries?
Well, I'm paralysed from about here downwards, which will never recover. And obviously I've lost bowels and bladder and my hands. And some of my muscles in the arms are paralysed. But I can move my arms fairly well, and wrists.
With things like having a cup of tea, you've got to have someone
well,
to
no, I'll be able to do that eventually.
Well, give you a sip.
Yeah, thanks very much. Lovely.
I was telling all my friends, oh, don't worry, I'll be back in April, I'll be captain of swimming, no problem. I came here and the consultant said on the first day, you'll never walk again. And that hurt. But it's been great, actually. It's really sorted my mind out, in that I'm a great believer in fate, in that it didn't just happen because of the game of rugby. I was very screwed up inside. There was a lot wrong. I was having problems at school, problems at home, having problems with relationships with other people, and something had to break. I was sort of going around in little circles, and so I had this idea that everyone travels somewhere. I was in the roundabout, going round and round and round, and my neck broke, and it's given me 6 months to sort everything out, and I think I know where I'm going. I found the right route.
Have you yet Given any thought to how you'll manage financially?
Well, you know, I hope to get a claim settled sort of thing, so which will take a few years anyway. At the moment, it's just social security, you know.
Which can't be easy with 2 young children.
Not at all, no. Other than sort of help from friends and things like that, you know, it's going to be very difficult.
How would you describe your general mood nowadays?
It depends. Some days, you know, you feel really great. Other days, you know, shoulders and that are aching, your neck hurts, you know, you just... You know, if you could top yourself, I think you would some of the times, you know.
Well, I liked doing a lot of sport, golf and that sort of thing. And I found that the most difficult. And I've got to give that up, I think. Fortunately, I think the business will be able to run without me. So things are not, you know, not too bad from that side. Whereas other people have a lot of problems when they get home.
What about the mental effects on you?
Well, I think I put that right fairly quickly. Being older, I've had you know, as I said, I've had a fairly good life. And, you know, I was pretty good at putting that right, I think, anyway.
Remove the trouser. I think a lot of the time doing weights or putting clothes on, it's so complicated, or you've just got to find ways of getting that toenail through the trouser leg, and it can get so frustrating inside that you just sit there and you just go for about 5 minutes, just get absolutely wild, then you calm down, and you just got to find a way of releasing energy. When I put trousers on, I've got to get them on. I've got to find ways of doing it. You have to sort of be philosophical. You never think, I'm doing this because one day I shall be fully independent. You're doing this because I want to put my trousers on myself. I used to think I was very confident. I used to have this facade of being the great sort of person with confidence. I was never quite sure myself that I had. I mean, 2 months ago, I would have never have leant out of my chair and touched my knees with my chest because I didn't have the confidence. I would never have gone up to someone in a queue at a fair or whatever and talked to them because I had this idea that people look at a disabled person and think he's mentally disturbed. And it's very easy to think that. But if you install confidence into someone and talk to them normally, then they will respect that, and you'll find that 99 times out of 100, you will be able to talk to them, and very sensibly.
What do you find the most frustrating thing?
Well, I think it's just sort of silly things like, you know, it's sort of your head itches or something, you know, you just can't get there to scratch it, or, you know, just stupid things, but now, like, they're sort of annoying at the same time, you know.
You can't clean your teeth, I suppose, either, can you?
Well, just about, but it's a struggle. I have to do, you know, one side with one hand, one side with the other hand.
I want to become a teacher now. I want to go to a university or institute for further education and become a teacher. I'd like to coach rugby from a wheelchair. I think that'd be fantastic. And also swimming. I was a great swimmer. And although I might not be able to take part in a lot of sports, interest is perhaps more civilised than playing rugby. Sitting on the edge of a pitch with a pint of beer seems to me a little bit more enjoyable than having your head battered in. But it makes you think you've got to start again.
Right, so this goes underneath.
I don't know whether I like this all that much. You were domineering enough before without this. Dear me.
It's all right. No, it's just making sure that his body's all straight. That's it. And gently down. Then you can go to sleep.
A safe landing, Douglas.
Well done.
What do you think it's going to be like when you go back to your pub? You're going in 2 days' time. What's it going to be like to go back there?
Well, I'm looking forward to it, obviously. And be nice to see everyone. There'll be problems until they alter various things in the building. But I don't think it'll be too bad. I'd sooner be going home to, you know, something like that than perhaps just going home, you know, and as the ordinary person.
Oh, come on.
6 years ago, Tony Jeffries was one of Britain's top 5 competitive motorcyclists. But in 1973, slowing for a corner, he made a mistake. He crashed and several machines ran over him. His back's broken, he's no feeling in his body below his arms or in his legs. His career ruined, he went back to his father's 2 garages in Bradford to put the memory of that Mallory Park accident behind him. 2 years earlier, in 1971, one of his greatest victories had come in the famous Isle of Man TT races.
Excellent.
OK, love, see you later. Come on, kids, out the way.
Hi, Dave.
Bye-bye!
See ya.
The son of a Shipley motorbike dealer who helps organise TT Week, Jeffries surprised everybody by leading from start to finish at such a punishing pace. On the very first lap of this storming 750cc TT, the 3 leaders all lapped at over the ton.
All I wanted to do was finish, and I concentrate on keeping the revs down. I get them down to 9,000, and I just wanted to make sure I finished.
Did you see Agostini pushing along the road?
Well, Agostini passed me at Quarter Bridge or on the straight to Braddon Bridge first lap, and I just thought, let him go. I'm not going to... Well, I couldn't compete with that.
But when he went out of the race, did you see him on the road?
I had no idea. I didn't know when I finished that he was out of the race. I had no idea.
When I first came out of hospital, I was initially terrified for a very short period. Fortunately, I'm not the sort of person that can get bogged down with that sort of thing. But I was really more self-conscious than anything else. You thought that everybody would be looking at you because you're in a wheelchair. And in fact, most people did look at you. You can't help going into a restaurant, going somewhere special. The general public tend to look at you, and you think that everybody is looking at you. They, in fact, usually only give you a glance and then dismiss it because, you know, I like to be as normal as possible. I like to think that I'm as normal as possible, and that people aren't looking at, oh, look at that fella over there, he's in a wheelchair. But people don't do that. We find we go into a restaurant or into public places, and people are very, very helpful indeed. Nearly too helpful, actually.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest problems. People trying to help you, you know, they rush forward and they're grabbing pieces of the wheelchair and they're coming off in their arms, all sorts of things.
But I had no idea what wheelchair life would be like beforehand, because I'd never ever considered it, never thought about it, and hadn't paid much attention to anybody in wheelchairs particularly. One of the strange things that happened was a few days before I had the accident, 3 days before, I was talking to a friend of mine whose son had had a similar problem. And while discussing it, one of the comments I made was that, God, if I broke my back and ended up paralysed, I'd slit my throat. I couldn't live like that. I just couldn't believe it. And lo and behold, 3 days later, I went and did it.
Once you're put into the situation, you've got to get on with it. With friends, racing friends who came to visit Tony, and some of them were very frightened. You know, all of a sudden, they were presented with a situation that could happen to them. And because it hadn't done, they were a lot more frightened of it than we were. I suppose initially I found it difficult looking back on it. The first time we went out, I had to stop the car. I had David on a baby rein, wrap that round the door handle because he was a little so-and-so, he'd have been off. Then I had to get a pram out, then I had to get a wheelchair out, and trying to push a pram and a wheelchair and hold on to a baby at the same time is not easy. But, you know, we got by, and we've good friends who'll help us as well.
Do you think the hospital prepared you for life outside again, life in a chair?
No, I think the hospital is a bit limited in one sense. They tend to look after you very, very well indeed while you are in hospital, no doubt about that.
Oh.
I don't feel they give you a good enough idea about what life is going to be outside. you've got to look after yourself very, very carefully.
I feel, you know, that they should have told me more about it. They did, in fact, show Tony the result of a bed sore, but they didn't show it to me, and I'm the one who looks at him, and if he gets a mark or anything on him, I'm still not sure what a bed sore looks like. We had a problem a short time ago. Big flat ran up to the doctor. She said, "Oh no, you've got a boil." But we didn't really know, and we were very worried because it had happened over the weekend. And, you know, had it been a bed sore, it could have been a big problem. It could even have been back to hospital.
I mean, things like going to bed, having a bath, going to the toilet must all be very difficult for you.
Not as difficult at home. Obviously, we're organised and things were arranged, so it would be fairly easy for Tony, but it can be a nightmare in hotels, this kind of thing. You know, they'll say, "Oh, yes, we can cope with somebody in a wheelchair." You get there, the lift's too small. So you have to sit him on a buffet, drag him into the lift, take him up, then come back down for the wheelchair. You'll get in, the chair won't fit through the bathroom door. So you're juggling about again and sort of pushing him from one bit to another and arms round my neck and heaving him about. And it can be a lot of hassle.
I mean, things like going to the toilet must take an awful long time, mustn't they?
Well, it varies on different people who've got spinal injuries. I certainly have a terrific problem with
yes.
it. It can take me anything up to about 4 hours, and you know, every other day. That's a large lump out of your life. It gets a bit frustrating, you know. I have to spend a lot of time there, doing a fair bit of reading and God knows what else. You know, I tend to do the newspaper fairly well every morning. You know.
You'd only been married, what, literally 2 years. I mean, what effect did all this have on your sex life?
Well, it just finished, you know, completely. There's no way you can have sex with an accident like Tony's. We were very fortunate in that we'd one child who was just a year old. I was 4 weeks pregnant with the little girl, so we'd one of each, no swaps, and just got on with it, sort of thing. I think it possibly helped that I was a bit older. I was 30 before I was married, so I was 32 by the time all this happened. And I think being that age, it was easier to accept and cope with than had I been 21 or 2. You know, you've seen a bit of life and that's it.
Do you still find it easy to accept?
I've got used to it now. You know, that's it, end of story. Forgotten what it's all about.
You might have forgotten that. I have a vivid imagination.
Yes, haven't you,
yeah, I have to rely on that an awful lot. It's the finest vasectomy I've ever had.
Yeah.
Do you think it's tougher for you, Tony?
I don't know whether it's tougher for me or for Pauline. It's obviously
I
can't do anything.
Tougher for me. I still could. He can't.
Yeah, I can't. I have no choice. I can't. So you know, I'm very trusting.
Difficult to accept?
It is a bit difficult. I find that obviously when we go out with a gang of lads, so to speak, and talking about sex and God knows what else, I can talk about it as well as anybody, and I can, you know, fortunately, you know, I have a good memory, and I have to rely on that really.
All talk, no stalk.
You're just 18.
Yeah.
I mean, do you see the day when you could marry?
Oh yeah, definitely. In that, because I'm gaining the confidence of meeting people, and hopefully that doesn't exclude women. And I think there will be someone who will find who'll find me suitable anyway. And I think I'll be a better person because I'm disabled, and they won't think I've married someone. It's a burden because he is disabled. Hopefully they'll be proud. They'll be able to say, this is a guy who's virtually dead, who came back, and he is virtually normal. I'm proud to be with him, rather than I've got to transfer him into the car. He's not independent. I've got to get the drinks for him, whatever. So apart from the looks, I think I'll have to. I think no problem there. Hopefully.
This weekend, Doug Whiting goes back to his pub at Sunningdale. It's the first time he's been outside for 6 months, since a car crash paralysed him. He'll be home for the weekend to get used to coping with the outside world from a wheelchair, away from the cosy confines of Stoke Mandeville.
It was Saturday evening, and I was working in the barns, and fellas came in to me and said, "Your husband has had a slight accident." And matter of fact, he'd been shooting, so I thought he either shot himself or somebody else. And they said, "Oh, he's had a slight car accident." And of course, it wasn't a slight car accident; it was a very bad one. They didn't know whether he would live, and they didn't know what he would get back. So I didn't know whether I should pray that he died or pray that he lived. But as it happened, he lived, and I'm pleased he did. At times, I felt that I didn't want to be emotional about it. We did keep a brave face, but I think now we know it's just a challenge to our life, and we've just got to do it. I think because we had a good marriage before, we've obviously got more chance now. If we hadn't, we would have most likely gone under. But I think because we were good together before, we will still be the same. I want him to be as independent as he can be. I don't want him to depend on me. I want him to be, because he was always independent. He was one of those fellas who always went out and played golf. You know, went off. I mean, he was always out playing his golf or doing his thing, and I still want him to be exactly the same.
Oh, I thought Jags had a wider doorway than this. I reckon put your hand back.
I thought Dad always gets the chair here. We've got to get the
What do you reckon, Doug?
Yeah. Pull the chair right up.
Yeah, well, hang on, let's just swing his legs
Get
out
the legs
first.
out first and get him into a sitting position facing the door. Right.
This way.
That's it.
Just give us a shout if I do anything wrong.
Well, I can't feel it anyway.
Can you turn him a bit, Joyce? Can you turn him there?
What it'd be like when I go home, I don't really know. You know, it's not to be too much of a burden on me, missus. Sort of thing.
You ready, Doug?
I'm all set for the big step. Hello, Fred. Oh, he likes a lot. Can't believe it. You had good service while I've been away.
That's how I do it, yeah.
Am I having first taste?
Yeah.
Marvellous.
It's only because 4 inches of water in the bath. Compulsory.
How's it taste?
Marvellous, marvellous. I think you've invited too many, actually.
I invited 2 people.
Oh, you're okay.
They were just
Yeah, that's right. Sell tickets, sell tickets.
My idea is that basically I've got to stick 2 fingers up to life. In that when I die, it will have broken my neck and it will have made things very difficult. But I want to say to life, you broke my neck, I came through, I think I've had a better life and a fuller life than I would have had. Goodbye. And leave it at that.